This video is for anyone looking for a reason to hope. I'm Kirsten Weiss, and I write metaphysical and cozy mysteries. There's an idea in certain esoteric circles that hope is inferior to faith. Faith is certain, hope is not. So faith is better for manifesting. I'm not going to talk about manifesting. Well, actually, maybe in a way I am talking about manifesting because I think hope has a place in it too. This story isn't mine. It was told to me when I was getting ready to go to Ethiopia, and I had, by chance, been introduced to a woman who had worked there in the 1970s. Now, the 1970s in Ethiopia must have seemed like a place with very, very little hope. The decade started out with a famine that killed 200,000 people. That sparked a civil war between competing Marxist factions. 1.4 million people lost their lives. Eventually, one of those factions, the Derg, consolidated their power and took over. And they started their rule by declaring a genocide. They called it the Red Terror. Knowing that the government on its own couldn't kill as many people who were not on board with the glorious socialist utopia as they wanted, they handed out weapons to their civilian allies. The civilians then went out and killed whoever had made them mad and just massacred at will. As it was told to me, bodies were left lying on the streets of Addis Ababa, the capital. People walked around them. Now, in the middle of all this was an Ethiopian widower with 5 children. He walked around the bodies too. And I can't blame him for that. I don't think the human brain can handle being under constant threat for months, much less years. So it rationalizes. It says, oh, that group of dead people on the street over there, that's not going to happen to you because those people were probably politically active, but you aren't politically active, so you and your kids are safe. Or that group over there, they probably annoyed their neighbors and that's why they were killed, but your neighbors love your kids, so your family's safe. But then one day he walked around a body that he'd known in life, and he knew he had not been politically active, and he knew that he had not angered his neighbors, and he knew that he and his children were in deadly peril. That day he went to collect his youngest child, a daughter who was around 4 or 5 at the time, from the neighbors across the street. She loved to play with the little American girl who lived there. When he picked her up, he realized something was off. She was not her usual 4-year-old chatterbox self. So he asked what was wrong. And she told him that her very best friend in the whole wide world, the little American girl across the street, was going to be moving back to the United States with her family very soon. He tried to console his daughter. He told her, new family's going to move in, you're going to make new friends. But this got the wheels turning in his mind, and it sparked hope. The next day, he went to take his daughter across the street to play. And he stopped the American mother and asked if he could come in to chat. She was surprised, but she invited him in for coffee. And after the preliminaries, how are you? How's your family? He got down to business. And he told her that he didn't think he and his family were going to make it. She didn't respond because she didn't know if that family was going to make it either. Then he said something that really shocked her. He asked if she would adopt his youngest daughter and take her with them to the United States. She told him she could not make that decision on her own. She would have to consult her family. And she did, and they agreed to adopt his youngest daughter. And a few months later, they left with her for America. I cannot imagine what was going on in that man's heart when he watched the plane lift off. But he had saved his daughter. And with that moment, I think, came faith. Because if he had saved one of his children, he could do it again. And he did, again and again and again. He adopted out all of his children to Western families in Canada, America, and Western Europe. He got them all out of the country into safety. Now, the adopted families understood that their job was not just to provide a safe and loving home for the children, it was also to try and keep the Ethiopian family intact as best they could. This was in the 70s and 80s. No internet, no Snapchat, no email, just very expensive international phone calls and very long waits for international mail. But you can imagine the phone bills and the anticipation waiting for the next letter to arrive and the excitement when the next letter from a sibling did arrive. The kids grew up, they went to college, they started careers, and they did stay in touch. And now every year they return to Ethiopia to visit their father, who did not die. When I first heard this story, I thought, oh my God, this should be a movie. What this man did, it's like a reverse Sophie's Choice with a happy ending. But then I realized, no, what makes the story great, aside from the fact that it's true, is that these are all just ordinary people doing the right thing with love, faith, and hope. It's easy to ask, how can there be so much evil in this world? But by my count, there were at least 11 people doing incredibly good things under extraordinarily difficult circumstances. The 5 couples who adopted the children, and the hero of my story, the father. So maybe a better question to ask, and this is by no means an original thought, is how can there be so much good in this world? I think the answer, or at least an answer, is faith, love, and hope. And now my next question for you is, how can you be a part of that? Thanks for listening. And if this resonates, leave a comment.